Growing up, I never believed that there would be an entire genre of Sonic horror game content. One search on Google or Game Jolt and you'll be scrolling through pages and pages of images of Sonic with bloody eyes and a tormented Tails being killed off in the worst way. And it's not just fan games, it's creepypastas, fanfic, analog horror videos, and it's safe to say that scary Sonic content is here to stay.
You're goddamn right.
But where the heck did all of this come from? I know many of you would be quick to say Sonic.EXE, but let's go back even further. Was a seed planted in our collective heads back when we found that trauma-inducing bonus screen in Sonic CD? Or was it the nightmare-fueled ghosts that haunt you within the dark tombs of Sandopolis Zone in Sonic and Knuckles? Or maybe it was the introduction of Tails doll that eventually turned into a story about the curse it placed on the player. We'll save that for a video coming soon. My point is, even before Sonic.EXE, exploring the creepier, dark side of the Sonic world was not out of the ordinary, even within the games themselves. So I decided to go back to Newgrounds. Yeah. One of the earliest sites on the internet for all kinds of fan content. It was during this era of early 2000s, sprite content was at its peak, with animators using Flash to repurpose video game sprites to tell unique fan-made stories that you wouldn't normally find in the actual video games. Sonic was no exception, and I would say prior to Sonic.EXE popularizing this format, this was the place to go to see explicit sprite battles with emphasized violence and scenes like this.
Mr. Anderson. You got my package?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Cool.
The earliest Sonic horror content I could track down on Newgrounds, assuming some of them were lost to time, is a sprite animation known as Nosferatu, created in 2007, depicting the Sonic cast being hunted down by a vampire version of Rouge and Shadow. Despite the curse of Tails doll being popular around this time, I would say Nosferatu was one of the early Sonic horror contents that was available on the internet. So when YouTube popped up, channels like myself began reposting Sonic game trailers and AMVs with angsty music in the background. But was Sonic horror popular on YouTube as well? Let's just say prior to Sonic.EXE games, there were way too many videos that were essentially slideshows of bloodied and mutilated characters from the franchise. Your guess is as good as mine as to why this was popular at the time. So let's move ahead to D-Day, the release of Sonic.EXE. And I've told this story many times before on this channel, but Sonic.EXE was a creepypasta story submitted in 2010 by an author, cataloging the story of a boy named Tom, who gets his hands on a cursed disc from his friend Kyle, who begs him to destroy it. But this wouldn't be a horror story if he did.
You fucking donut!
Tom proceeds to play the game and watches as an evil-looking Sonic goes on to end all of his friends one by one. This horrifies Tom.
Fuck you, Sonic.EXE.
Rightfully so. And whether it's through possession or morbid curiosity, he finishes the game only to find a Sonic.EXE plushie waiting behind him on his bed to torment him further. The story was simple, and didn't necessarily turn many heads at first. In fact, several other stories about a cursed game cartridge were already popular. For instance, Ben Drowned, detailing a cursed Majora's Mask cartridge, was already claimed by the Zelda fans. Then there was also the story about Pokemon Black, no, not that one, that described the strange happenings in a hacked Pokemon cartridge. So I'd go on to say that Sonic.EXE wasn't exactly the most original of stories, until a young Irishman named Adam Gavigan stepped up to the plate. Adam here, better known as Mist Crimson, my 5T Crimson, would be the hero that would immortalize creepy Sonic fan games from that moment forward, submitting the game version of the Sonic.EXE story to Game Jolt in August 2012. So what happened? Let's look at the trends. We see a steady rise in interest for Sonic.EXE from August to December 2012, and I'll attribute this growth both to general users and creepypasta fans searching for the game. Let's Play YouTubers who were exploding in popularity around this time were also getting curious.
And go left.
Markiplier, with his whopping 45,000 subscribers, played the game on his channel, And Jacksepticeye supported his fellow Irishman with his OG 2,000 subs. I can imagine several other YouTubers caught on to this trend, as the internet collectively enjoyed watching as their precious childhoods warped into a horrifying nightmare fuel. The word of Sonic.EXE spread steadily, but in May 2013, boom, it peaked. I wonder what might have caused that.
How's it going, man? Holy shit, what the fuck is this? Welcome to Sonic.EXE. It's supposed to be like a creepypasta.
Yeah, so PewDiePie, the biggest name in YouTube himself, took a crack at the game, putting it in the public eye, which opened the floodgates for budding game developers to make Sonic.EXE content that they hoped would somehow get in front of their favorite YouTubers. This, of course, resulted in a tsunami of Sonic.EXE spin-offs, supposed remakes, and sequels. But then, an unsettling fan animation based on Sonic.EXE emerged, created by a mysterious YouTube account called Chinolin in 2013. So the internet would do internet things and plagiarize the events within this animation to create another creepypasta story, which would become the supposed sequel to Sonic.EXE, Sally.exe. Unaware of the plagiarism, Mist Crimson creates a sequel based on the Sally.exe story, with Amy Rose, Cream the Rabbit, and Princess Sally serving as 3 additional victims of Sonic.exe's reign of terror. At this stage, people are referring to this entity as X. Now, once Mist Crimson discovered the story was stolen from an animation, he denounced his own project, but despite his efforts, it still became rather popular, and is more or less seen as the official sequel to the original game. I hope you're following along, because this rabbit hole gets even deeper.
Wake up! Yes, sir. Wake up! Yes, sir.
The author of the original story would release a sequel and a remake, while the Sonic community collectively began to throw tomatoes anytime he surfaced from the depths of the Mariana Trench. Oh, and if you're wondering why I keep skipping over his name, it's because there's been some pretty damning allegations regarding this man, and he's already been written off by the Sonic.exe community. In fact, ownership of the character would eventually be passed off to an artist named Astronomicon.EXE, with the X entity himself being renamed to Xenophanes. Spin-off stories and reboots began to emerge, like Sonic.exe Nightmare Beginning by luigikid, bringing to the forefront a new enemy with his own lore, Xectior, who is apparently part of a race of all-powerful beings known as the Highest. So Xectior here possesses Sonic and wreaks havoc around Mobius with demons in an attempt to stop his own people from erasing and recreating the world. So the Sonic cast is caught up in this battle between Xectior and the rest of the Highest. luigikid would create an entire trilogy building off of this idea. And the concept of the Highest would also be used in Sonic.exe, Spirits of Hell, and its sequel, Sally.exe, Whisper of Soul, which I reviewed last October, which introduced the antagonist Exilor, who would similarly terrorize the Sonic cast. The EXE format would also spread to other franchises like Mario and Kirby. Even Aladdin wasn't safe. And with all these franchises getting the EXE treatment, it wasn't long before parodies began to appear. Sunky.mpeg, an entity that is tracking down other Sonic characters to force them to dance and be merry.
Milk and cereal, milk and cereal, milk and cereal, cereal and milk.
So at this stage, I'm sure you get the point. We reached a point of no return with Sonic.exe, and while fizzling out to some degree, there would always be a steady flow of Sonic horror games from that point on. Some even moving away from the EXE format and attempting to create a creepy game with an original story. The Sonic series was now the official gaming series for creepy content. Even with the rise of Five Nights at Freddy's, we got a series called Five Nights at Sonic's. And yeah, I'm sure there's a FNAF game for every video game series under the sun, but this was worth mentioning regardless. So after a while, Sonic.exe would remain somewhat popular, but it slowly began to fade away from the mainstream. Until suddenly, at the end of 2021, it reached a new level of popularity because of this game. And with Friday Night Funkin', we've come full circle. Because this was a game created by a team of Newgrounds artists and game designers back in 2020. You play as Boyfriend, competing in a series of rap battles and challenges to gain the approval of others to continue dating your girlfriend. But this game at one point got so popular, it crashed the Newgrounds site with the amount of traffic attempting to access it. Its popularity opened the door for a thriving mod community that began to add songs and put in endless amounts of rivals for Boyfriend to battle. That's when Friday Night Funkin' vs Sonic.exe pulled up to the scene. Releasing in August 2021, this took everything related to scary Sonic motifs and absolutely ran with it, introducing Sonic.EXE to a brand new generation. Boyfriend would battle against a multitude of both official and fan-made characters with completely original songs that are actually some of the best I've heard from an FNF mod. This had Sonic.EXE trending higher than it ever has before. This project is still being updated and is owned by Marstarbro and Com Gaming NZ, who serve as the directors, but the amount of people collaborating on this one mod is staggering. We see appearances from the original Sonic.EXE, now known as Xenophanes, who is the major antagonist, but Boyfriend can also face off with Sunky, Tails doll, Majin Sonic from that one creepy Sonic CD screen, and even Fleetway Supersonic. So if you're a Sonic fan or an FNF fan, you owe it to yourself to try out this mod. Maybe you'll get further than I did because it kicked my ass live on stream.
No, Sonic, don't!
So now that interest for Sonic.EXE has been revived, I'm seeing some new promising projects that are hitting the web, like Sonic.EXE PC port and Sonic the Hedgehog editable ROM, or Sonic.EYX for short. This made some waves on YouTube a few months back, and I have my eye on this one, no pun intended, as it uses quite a few tricks with your window to amplify the horror aspect, making the game truly feel like a rogue cursed program that's taking over your machine. Seeing this animation has made me realize how far we've come since the original game, and I'm looking forward to seeing if there would be new updates or a new EYX game. I think we tend to be curious about the creepier and unsettling aspects of innocent things, especially if it's deeply rooted within our childhoods. I would say this explosion of this kind of content was definitely propped up by the YouTube community, but the general interest of seeing something as innocent and family-friendly as Sonic the Hedgehog turning into a glitchy, murderous bloodbath, breaking the fourth wall to taunt the player, is the result of exploring those mysterious moments we experienced as a child. Before the days of game guides online and video walkthroughs, many of us had word of mouth to go on. So if Kyle at school told you to try and move that truck behind the SSN in Pokemon to get Mew, the only thing you could do was race home and try it. That mysterious aspect of games, not knowing what's hidden behind the code, gave rise to these projects. And Sonic horror content as a whole won't be going anywhere anytime soon. And I'll be here for the next horrifying installment. VR devs, I'm looking at you. Anyway, thanks for watching. And leave me a comment with your favorite scary Sonic game. As always, be safe. The Prophet has spoken.